Hello, welcome to Glitch Challenge number 3. My name is Lizzie Diamond, and I am a developer advocate at Glitch, and I am here with... Yeah, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I'm Sheridan. Hi. There's like a weird delay on this. I'm Sheridan. Hello.
And Sheridan is an engineer at Glitch. Who, like, we are still, as you probably know from if you've watched the other two, we are still, oh, bye Sheridan. We're still figuring out the YouTube streaming situation, which is fun. That's how we do things. We are trying to figure out how they work. So welcome to today. I mean, also welcome to my kitchen. Hello.
Hi. All right, I'm back. And I just learned a big valuable lesson that if you ever do a Hangouts on air, don't be in the Hangout and then also open the YouTube page at the same time. Because if not, you'll get about a 10-second delay with the same stream coming at you. So don't ever do that. So I'm Sheridan. And as you can tell, this is my first ever Hangout on air. And I'm a product engineer at Glitch. And I'm really excited to do this challenge with Lizzie.
Yay. That sounds exactly right. That is exactly how we figured this stuff out. We just try it. So we're going to talk about Leaflet today, which is a tool for making web apps. And I am going to share my screen. If you have things to say, I think that you can say them in chat, and then we can see it.
Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye out on my phone, not on my computer, so I don't have the same audio coming out twice.
Okay, and at some point we should talk to Melissa, who's done the stream with us before, to figure out how she did her YouTube magic.
Yeah, point noted.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that?
I can. It looks great.
Present to everyone. Cool.
Yeah, I can
awesome.
see it.
So this is the blog post that we wrote about making a web map with Leaflet. And Leaflet is a tool for making interactive web maps. And part of the challenge of making a map is that it's a lot of the world, like you have to put the entire world in it. So a user has to be able to style the world or have some way that the world is going to be styled, and then also interactive data that gets overlaid on top of that map. So there's a little bit of like conceptual stuff that makes it easier to make maps. So we're going to talk about it. So Leaflet, the thing that Leaflet does, like every JavaScript library, a JavaScript library will write a little bit of code, package it up, and then you can just use it. So I don't have to sit and think about like, how do I make a map container to put on the page that like will take in all this data? Leaflet did it for me. I just have to bring in Leaflet and say, hey, Leaflet, give me a map. And then Leaflet is like, cool, I can do that. So the kind of main construction of a web map is you have a map container, and that map container is the thing down here that knows how to zoom and pan, and it knows how to like add all these layers in it. And then inside of that container, we add two main layers. The first layer is a map tiles, and that's the background that you'll see here, the base map. That's in black and white here. And then the other layer we add is the data layer, which is the part that's interactive. And we do that using this data set was provided by the city of Portland. I say provided like they made it for me. Like, no, it was just on the website. But
I had a question about this actually. Like, if you wanted to create your own GeoJSON, like, how would you do that? Like, how do you recommend it?
There are a couple of tools to do that. One of them is called geojson.io, which is a little bit of an older project, but you can go in. So we can go in here to the US, be like, I see Salt Lake, so I can add a point. And then the JSON automatically appears. And then it also has a table view. So if I click on this point and I say, like, I want name to be Salt Lake, and if I save, then I have an entry in this little table view that will tell me the marker color, marker size, which you can adjust, and then the name. And so when I clicked on it, it zoomed to it, which is cool when you're not in a lake. But in this moment, it zoomed me right to the middle of the lake.
That makes sense.
And interestingly, and we're not going to talk about this too much, but Leaflet accommodates an older specification called the simple style specification. And the idea is that you can have a property in your data called marker color, and if you change the property in the data, it'll actually change the marker color that's drawn on the map. So if I make this, white, then the marker turns white. Similarly, with the marker size, I make it a large marker, versus like we can add another marker and make this one, what do you have a hex code in mind? Should I just make one up? 78FE79.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sounds great. Oh, nice. I like that.
And I make it small, and then yes, perfect. So this is the simple style specification, which still works, which is very cool. It's the maps that we're making today, in this kind of style of adding tiles as images and then adding marked data on top. This is an older way of making web maps, but it is extremely reliable and works most of the time. There are newer ways to make web maps that involve using GL and client-side loading. And
what's GL?
GL is the letters stand for graphics library, but it's a tool that does rendering on your machine. So when instead of loading an image on the server and then sending that to the browser, GL will load a bunch of data in the browser and then use your computer's graphics processing unit to render on the client. So that means that for things to update, they don't need a full round trip. So you can see as I pan around this map, you can see the tiles loading, these little images.
Because that's going to the server and pulling them back.
Exactly right. Yeah, and then in a GL map, you wouldn't see those image tiles because instead, what's being loaded is a bunch of data, and then once the data is loaded, it gets styled by the client, so in the browser. So like you don't see as much of those seams, and it means that you can do stuff like rotate the map and the labels stay upright because they're not just images that are being brought from the server.
Makes sense.
There are a couple other tools for making your own data, but they are affiliated with companies. So there's ArcGIS Online is another one, and Mapbox has a tool for making data, GeoJSON data in the browser. But then also there are like
ArcGIS, ARC?
ArcGIS, yeah, and that is ArcGIS is like proprietary mapping software. There's this company called Esri, ESRI, and they became a company in 1969. I can't believe I know this. They became a company in 1969. And their whole thing was like spatial data is big. Like we don't just have to store information about data like any other database. We also have to store spatial relationships and like where the thing is in the world and how that relates. And especially because with maps, we're taking a like bumpy round or bumpy spheroidish, ellipsoidish thing that is the planet and trying to make it flat and put a coordinate system on it. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. So spatial data becomes more of a bear because you need to be able to like store that information, that spatial information. So they have been a desktop software company for a long time, enterprise, and then they, as of the last 15 years, they've moved online. And so they obviously still very lucrative desktop software situation, but they also have an online tool, and I think that you can make data with it, but I haven't in a while because I use geojson.io.
Cool.
Because it's like so straightforward. So that would be a place to make your own GeoJSON data if you wanted to make it, but also you can go online. I did a search on data.gov, which is the US government's like aggregator of all data. So it has like federal data, but also like state and local as well. And I live in Oregon, so naturally I looked at Portland data because we all do that thing where we like zoom to the place that on a map, and same thing with data.
Totally.
And then I found a data set of neighborhoods. And Portland is an interesting city insofar as we have official neighborhood boundaries. A lot of cities don't, but Portland has an official Office of Neighborhood Involvement that has an official boundary data set. So, and it does a nice job of covering the whole city. So it might be a good one to start with. Sorry, did you have a question?
Nope, that sounds great.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to this app, which I have open here, and we're going to remix it. So this is the first thing you want to do if you are playing with any of these apps, is you want to go in. Oh, the button goes underneath the map.
Oh, man. All right. We need to file a bug request.
File a bug. Should we fix that right now?
Oh, we could do, right? We could go to the button web app. We just have to put like
is it in the button?
Oh,
or is it
I remember Jen saying that she doesn't mess with the Z index.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what you can do. Normally, here under this lovely thing, this map that I made is you can remix from here. But what you can also do is click on the link that you can see, and that'll take you to this page. And this is the project page. And then underneath here at the bottom right, you have a remix button where you can remix it from. That's really good to know, and I'm going to note that for the future, where we have to.
After this
go on top.
Yeah.
So we'll remix this. When you remix a project, it makes your own copy of that project and gives it a neat name. Tangy Flamingo is one of the better ones I've ever gotten.
And Keith just dropped in on the conversation, by the way, to say that in the button project, there's some information about how we could properly customize it. So we can go back and to the Starter Leaflet project later. And
right. Awesome. So yeah, look out for that in the future. So now we have our own copy of the Leaflet Starter app. And if you're following along at home and you made your own copy, I would love to know the names of the remixes that you made that were generated, because Tangy Flamingo is pretty good. But also, if you made your own, I want to hear it. But also,
I'm going to join now, Lizzie. So
okay.
Yeah, you can add me.
Yes, you can.
Thanks. Cool. So now we can collaborate on this.
Perfect. I love it. So this is the app. I mean, no, this is the README of the app. It's not the app itself. This is the README, and READMEs are great. My friend Tom likes to call them "you won't read me's," but you should read me's. And the whole point of a README, right, is to tell you like what's going on in the project, how it works. And typically, if you see a README on Glitch, it will describe the app itself. A lot of times, GitHub. This is how you download the project. This is how you collaborate and add to the project. But it's Glitch, so we don't have to explain that in the README, because you can make a remix and then you're ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk through the app, kind of file by file. Most of the file is in script.js because we are writing JavaScript that is making the app do its thing, but we do need to add CSS and HTML as well to make it work. First, I'm going to mention there's this directory called assets. And when you can add any file on your machine to the assets directory, so long as it's not like absurdly large, and we'll tell you if it's too big. But you can either add a file by going up here and clicking add asset, but it says, as it says here, you can drag and drop files as well. So that is, this is where I put the data. Excuse me. This is where I put the data that we're going to use for this project. There are other ways to retrieve data if your data is like hosted online, but in this case, I wanted everybody who remixed it to make sure that they had the data with them. And this is a great way. If you know that your data isn't changing, then putting it in the assets directory is a good way to go, or anywhere else on Glitch. But if you drag and drop, assets is where it'll go. And there are also a couple other cute images in here because I needed to put an image in the README, so I put it in here. And these are like two little duders enjoying looking at a cool map.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So Thank you. Index.html. This is a very short file, as you can see. An HTML file has a head and a body. The head is all the stuff that the file needs, or the browser needs in order to make the file go and work. And then the body is the stuff that you see on the page. And you can see Sheridan highlighting those in pink as we're chatting. In the head here, we add the local files that contain code that we want to run. So that's the style.css, which includes the CSS, and then script.js, which includes our JavaScript. And then below that, we add another JavaScript file and another CSS file. And these are the Leaflet library. Every library that you use will recommend the best way that they want you to include their library in your project. Some tools prefer that you actually download the CSS and JavaScript files and then add them to your project, like you might a script.js file or a style.css and add those in this way. Other projects like Leaflet say, here, copy and paste these two little tags, go. And so and that's what I did. And they're pointing to a place where leaflet.css and leaflet.js are hosted online. And I'd never seen this integrity tag before, and I meant to look it up, but I'm assuming that it is some sort of authorization. Have you ever seen that before?
I've seen it in package.json files and stuff where you like pull in dependencies, but I haven't seen it before. Script tag. Should we look it up?
Yeah.
Script tags.
I'm just going to Google what you're Googling.
Yeah. So I've got the third option. I got is the script element.
Oh, this one. Okay. So, we also saw inside of here, I see cross origin as well. And that it doesn't have a value in here, but it is an attribute that is included. So, interesting. Okay. So, like I said before, the head loads first. It tries to load in everything that it can, that it says that you're going to need for the page, and then it tries to load the content on the page. Defer attribute, which we have included, sorry, I keep looking the wrong one, which we have included here with the script.js, says make sure everything in the page is loaded first, and then load this script. Integrity, that the user agent can use to verify that a fetched resource has been delivered free of unexpected manipulation. I see. So the idea is that we have this string that we include, and then that string is checked on the other side where the Leaflet package is to ensure nothing happened to it in between.
Yep.
Is that right?
That sounds right. Yeah, I guess that prevents movie man in the middle attacks and such if people try and give you a file other than what you are expecting. Yeah.
The internet. A scary place sometimes because people might be waiting to intercept your traffic. So so it's nice too that that was included in the documentation, that we could just throw that in there. Cool. So that's neat. Learned a new thing. Check that one off the box, or check that box off. Whatever. It's fine. In the body, we have a title, H1, which is a header that says Leaflet.js starter app. And then we, also up here where it says show, you can actually click that and it'll show you the thing live. So I can go in here and type Leaflet.js starter app, awesome. And then it will say awesome in the H1 as well. So as we edit in here, it will change up there. And then we add a sentence about like what this thing is. And then we have this div that is empty. There's nothing in it. It just is called map ID and it has nothing in it. And if you followed along with our previous challenges, you will now know that if you have an empty element or an element on the page and it doesn't have anything in it, you can still put stuff in it with JavaScript. And it just happens at another time, or it happens as the result of some sort of JavaScript tool functionality that you're using. So let's hop over to script.js and see what we're doing to that div. This first line here, this is so if we took this little line here that says global L, says, hey, we're loading a library in index.html, and that library exposes a global called L. And so don't worry, script.js. We know what L is. I know that you don't know what L is, but we do. So if I come in here and
just to check, that's just so that it doesn't complain like on a linting perspective, right? Because like
exactly.
otherwise, right? Okay, so because like
so
the fact
I could take that out, and it'll yell at me. It's like, I don't know what L is, dog, and I'll be like,
right.
that's fine. It'll still work just the same, but for the purposes of editing, it's nice to include this so that you know that if you're getting like a little error bubble, that it's because you actually made an error and not because this one file doesn't know about L or whatever the global is. The chart.js starter, it was chart. Cool. So one of my favorite things about making maps with JavaScript is the first thing you can do in your file is make the map. Which is like a lot of code. Sometimes you have to set up a bunch of stuff and then you make the thing. But this one, you can make the map first and then do stuff with it. So here we create a variable called map, and we assign to it an l.map. Note, this variable can be called whatever we want. We can call it butts if we really wanted to. But we use it several times. As you can see, as I highlighted, it'll highlight all the other instances of map. And we use it several times. So we make a layer and add it to the map. We set the bounds of the map. We add pop-ups to the map. So that map is something that we need to like know the name of so that we can add stuff to it in the future. L.map is Leaflet's, hey, cool, we can make a map for you. Don't worry, we just need some information. We need to know what is the ID of the div that this map is going to go in and any other information that you want to give us about it. So we made our div called map ID. So we're going to tell the Leaflet map, hey, put yourself in the map ID div. And we're also going to say we want the center point of the map to be in Portland. We want the initial zoom to be zoom level 10, which is where it loads. I can come in here and say, I want the initial zoom to be zoom level 3. And then it'll be zoom level 3. But that's not really that helpful because we want to actually see what's happening in Portland. So we'll put this back to 10. All of those kind of changes that you can make to the map, you can do either in your JavaScript that is loaded when the page is loaded, but also like if you have, if you want to have a button that zooms to a certain location, all of those events, or all of that like these specifications can be reset after the map is loaded. So like I can have a set zoom to 3 button, and if you click that button, it would zoom the map to 3. And we can actually do that in the console as well. So if you open your developer tools, I don't remember how to do this, so we're going to wing it. Map dot, oh, cool, it's just called map. Dope. Map dot set zoom 4, enter. And then the map zooms to 4. Dang, so cool. But then, of course, when I reload the page, it's going to load whatever was in the JavaScript originally, which is zoom level 10. But you can change it in the console as well, which is super awesome. So once we add this map to the page, there's nothing on it. If all the code we had was these lines right here, then there would be a map container, and you would be able to see this little like zoom in, zoom out, but there wouldn't be anything actually on the map. So the first thing we add is a tile layer. And so like we said, map tiles are these little images that load on the page when the container is in the area where they should be loaded. So one of the things that Leaflet does is it keeps track of where we are in the world and at what zoom level, and it makes sure that the tiles that load are the right tiles. And that's why you have to include a CSS file in addition to a JavaScript file. Because the CSS file is the one that says make sure that the images go in the right spot. If you exclude that CSS file, it ends up all jumbly. It's actually kind of fun. Let's try it. Haven't done this in a while. So let's comment out our CSS. Yeah, there you go. So it's trying. It's loading all the right tiles. It just doesn't know where to put them. And it also doesn't know how to draw the container itself. So the CSS is very important. I only got to make that mistake once. Here we have a URL that points to a tile server. And the way that tiles are structured is that each zoom level has its own set of tiles, and they are named by the location that they are in the grid of tiles for that zoom level. So zoom level 0 has one tile, and that tile is, and we can actually go to it because these are images that are on the web. So we can take this URL, open a new tab, and say, I want the tile at zoom level 0. There's only one tile at zoom level 0, so it's at the 0x position and the 0y position. Oh wait, there should be a slash there.
Yeah.
And then this, we have a tile that is one tile containing the whole world. If I go to zoom level 1, it'll show me the top left of this, but it'll be the same size. So, because this is the 0, 0 tile, if you start at the top left, 0, 0, of zoom level 1, which has 4 tiles. So then if I did, 1, 0, I don't know if you remember your, I don't remember what this is, discrete math? I don't remember. But the first digit is the zoom level, the second digit is the X location of the thing in the grid, and then the Y location of the thing in the grid. So what we can do here in our map is I can right click here on this image and say inspect, and it'll tell me, no, I want init. I want to get init, dog. Okay, hold on. Leaflet map pane, leaflet pane, tile pane, layer.
Oh.
Usually it'll just, there you go.
Oh, little layers.
Yeah. And so I can take this image, and so we can see this is zoom level 10, and in that grid at zoom level 10, it is 163 tiles in and 366 tiles down.
Cool.
Yes. So that's pretty neat. And it's cool because all of the tile sets use the same standard. So you can throw in any tile set so long as it's using like the same standard, and it'll work, which is super cool. So for example, these tiles are from a company called Stamen. And if you go to maps.stamen.com, you can see all of their tile options. And so they have, if you've ever seen, I'm sure some of you have seen these, the watercolor tiles that are really cool because it looks like a watercolor map. So super awesome. And it says down here at the bottom of the page, if you want to use HTTPS, which we do, this is the URL to use to get at those tiles, and it tells you how to add them. But what we're using for this map is toner light, which is a lighter background. In our code here, I could take the light out and we can just use toner. And as the map reloads, you'll see the darker toner tiles showing up in the background. Or there's also toner background, which doesn't have any labels. So that's the map without any labels. So any tile set, you can make your own tile sets. You can, use other tile sets, but any tile set, you're going to kind of add it in the same way by using l.tileLayer. Add it. I'm going to put it back to light because I think that's the prettiest one for this map anyway. I was going to use watercolor, but it kind of makes it harder to see data on top of it when you're using watercolor. So
yeah, this is perfect, I think.
I agree. So we have a map. We have layers. It's amazing. The next thing that happens in the code is we set a bunch of event handlers. And I'm actually going to come back to this. These are things that will be executed when a user interacts with the data. Because we haven't added the data yet in the code, these don't make a lot of sense because they're there for the moment when there's data and we need to add event handlers to it. And that's what's happening here in this last part. So we set these 3 functions. They each do a different thing. And then here in this function on each feature, we say, hey, assign each of these event handler functions to each of these events. So mouse over would be like hovering. Mouse out is like not hovering anymore. And click is click when you click it. And this is like some leaflet syntax that you'll see down below. Data. We put the data in a file in the assets directory. when you add something to the assets directory and you inspect it, it gives you the URL of where that lives on the glitch infrastructure. And that's great because once you have that, you can request it from in your code. Here we are using a tool called Fetch. If you've never heard about this before, or like asynchronous loading, like don't worry about it. That's not, I don't want to sit here and talk about that for another hour. But the idea is that if you have data in another file, you have to retrieve it asynchronously, and so that you can make sure that all of the data has been loaded before you do anything to it. Otherwise, JavaScript just does lots of things, and it does it as quickly as it can, and it doesn't really care what order you want them to be done in. So you have to specify the order that you want them to be done in. And part of this also has to do with various rules on the internet about like where things can be loaded from. But there's a link in here that you can go on the Mozilla Developer Network docs, so you can go and read about Fetch and about asynchronous data loading. Kind of the main piece of this here is eventually we get the JSON data out of that. Once we retrieve that data, then I create a function called do things with data, and everything that we're going to do with that data is in this function. So once the data is loaded, we call this function, and this is where the magic happens, as they say on MTV Cribs. So this data that we're getting in here is GeoJSON. It's neighborhood boundaries. And in order to know what to do with that data, I did have to inspect the data. So when I downloaded it, I opened it, and I looked at it. What we can do instead of doing that is actually go to the Portland neighborhood boundaries data set on the internet and figure out what's in the data because they will probably tell us, maybe. Now we do the fun thing where we try to navigate a city government website. I'm just going to not do that, and instead I'm just going to tell you what I found because that seems annoying. So this data has a property in it called coalit, which is short for coalition. And Portland neighborhoods, we have both like an individual neighborhood boundary as well as a coalition of neighborhoods. So what I wanted to do was style each feature by its coalition, which is why we have these groups of colors on the map. So this is a specific coalition of neighborhoods. It's a specific coalition of neighborhoods. So we use we say, okay, set the color of each feature to be the value of the color for that coalition in an object, which we are creating below in this function called assign colors. So assign colors takes a list of colors. It finds the number of unique values for that property and assigns each one a color. So there are 10 neighborhood coalitions. There are 12 colors in this list. It grabs the first 10 of them and assigns each one to a coalition. And it does that by first making a list of the unique values that are found in that field, and then that creates this color object that assigns a color to each one. So here we're making color object, and we're saying, hey, make this fun color object for us, please, thank you. And then we're going to add it to the map. Here we create a variable called GeoJSON, and this variable we actually created it earlier because it needs to be accessible to these event handlers. The event handlers need to know what's in that variable so that they can, specifically this event handler that resets the style after you hover on it. I know it's a little bit confusing, but it'll all come together. It's just doing it in a weird order. And also we say, okay, sorry, hold on. Whew, bring it back. Variable, GeoJSON. Inside of that variable, we create a leaflet layer that is of type GeoJSON. So similarly how we created an l.map earlier and an l.tire layer, we are creating an l.geojson layer. And Leaflet knows how to handle GeoJSON. You give it GeoJSON, it knows what to do. It knows how to make it into a layer, so long as you give it some things that it can use to make that layer. So for example, style. If we were to comment out this part that sets the style, it would have all the layers would have a generic style, which is blue with blue on blue, blue. And that's fine. It's just not my favorite. So by adding the style function, we can set a style for each individual feature. And the other option that you can pass to l.geojson is on each feature. And this is a function that says, this is what you should do on each feature when an event happens. So if we go up here to our on each feature function, this is where we said, hey, when you mouse over, call the highlight feature function, which makes the layer, makes that feature black when you hover over it. So when we hover over it, it makes it black. When we click on it, we call this function zoom to feature, which zooms to that feature. So, oh, nope. That was the wrong thing. Sorry. I'm going to do this so I don't accidentally do that again. If I click on it, it'll zoom to it, which is cool. So cool. But you'll also notice that a pop-up appears. And this pop-up, instead of adding it on into the click event handler, there's a super awesome built-in method on a GeoJSON layer called bind popup. And so what I can do is I can make this GeoJSON layer, which ends here, and then I can, once I've made it, I can call this bind popup method on it. And so then it says, for each layer, return this value name, which is the name of that's the field that includes the name of the neighborhood association, and then use that as the value to show in the pop-up. So that's what we're seeing here. This is Woodstock. This is Brentwood Darlington. This is Mount Scott Arleta, etc. And then lastly, once we create this layer, we have to actually add it to the map. If we took this line and commented it out, that layer still exists, but it's not on the map. Like, it still exists conceptually in your code, but it's never been added to the map, so it doesn't, you don't see it. Versus when we include this add to map method, reload the page, then it actually gets loaded. So that is how this works. I kind of wanted to power through it because I want us to have time to like poke at it and make some changes to it. Are there any questions? And pause for a sec, drink some tea.
So far, I'm excited to get the HTML, the more elaborate pop-ups working there.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, what?
No, that's just saying, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, let's do it. So I highly recommend, if you're going to make a map with Leaflet, going to leafletjs.com, which is the Leaflet website. And like most tools that you want to use, you want to read the documentation. Whoa, I just pulled my headphone out of my ear. I'm so excited about documentation. I'm just like flying around. Most JavaScript library websites or any other library will have documentation that tell you what each thing that you can use in the language or in the library does. There are also often tutorials that will show you how to do specific things. A lot of the code that is in this starter app has come from this interactive choropleth map example. A choropleth map is a map where you have different areas that are different colors depending on some value. So like an election map is a choropleth map. This population density map shown here is a choropleth map. For the first 5 years I was making maps, I referred to it as a chloropleth map, and that is incorrect.
I kind of read it that way in my head, so I definitely get why you did that.
Yeah, and I was at some event and some dude was like, excuse me, it's actually a choropleth map. And I was really upset about it until I realized that he was right. So here, what they're doing in this example is, instead of having the pop-up event happen when you click and it shows up as a little pop-up, it's doing it in this little control thingy in the corner. But I believe there is a tutorial for customizing pop-ups, if I remember correctly. And if not, we can just make it.
Yeah. There's nothing way to pass an HTML file to it, is that right? Or an HTML
Yeah, totally. So you can take a pop-up. So pop-ups are usually used when you want to attach some information to a particular object on a map. We are using this bind pop-up method on our layer. But you can also change. Wait, where is it?
The search from, oh, there we go. Do you see there's some HTML there, right at the top, marker.bind pop-up.
Oh, yes, you can put HTML in your bind pop-up. Right.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Obviously you can do that. I knew that the whole time. So down here where we are binding this pop-up, what we're returning is this text value. That is layer.feature.properties.name. And that is just, the same as like a string, or it represents a string. So because we are returning a string, we can also return a string that includes HTML. So I can put like strong, which is what makes it bold. Oh wait, that needs to be in quotes.
Yeah.
And say, not only do I want you to show me the name, I want you to show it to me with strong tags, just in case this didn't automatically reload. And now we see it's bold.
Nice.
But we can also do something even more fun. And instead of putting like a direct, instead of putting like a string here, we can actually make a function that returns a string that does something cool. So here I can create a function, make super cool pop-up. We take the layer, well, we take the feature, right? We actually just want the individual feature. We don't actually need the layer includes all the features. So we just want the individual feature to make this. And then, as I like to do, then when I'm making a stub function, we'll return butts and see how this works. So instead of this here that gives us the name as a string response, we're going to return make super cool pop-up layer.feature. And what should happen now is when we click on a thing, we should see a pop-up that says butts. Yep. Hey.
Nice.
Cool. That worked because that function is returning butts. That is what we get on our pop-up. But let's make it better than that. So let's make a variable called pop-up string, which is the thing that will actually be returned. And that way we can like slowly add to it. And we're going to return pop-up string instead of butts, even though butts is great. Pop-up string. So what do we want to include in our pop-up?
Well, we could like put a div and then put like an ID in it and then style that using the CSS. So we could like have like a little, I don't know, like a blue title or something like that. Or
Perfect.
we could have like, or we could like, because what other information is there in the GeoJSON? Is like a description, or like are there other fields that we might want to include in there?
I don't know, but what we can do is here when we have the JSON, we can print it to the console and take a look at it.
Right.
So. Yeah.
We actually have access to the GeoJSON object as well in the app, right?
Oh, right.
So we could just like in the console
do that.
Put that out, yeah.
Okay, so GeoJSON is itself a GeoJSON. The variable is the GeoJSON layer. So it's not the actual GeoJSON, but we can do GeoJSON dot and see what we can get.
The underscore layers has everything in it, right?
Still layers.
Yeah. And there's just some, yeah.
That's just within that function.
Do you see above, like there's like a little, do you see underscore layers within the object? So
yes, I see.
Yeah, so I think if you can do underscore layer, yeah, oh, that works too. Yeah, and then we can expand one of those. There you go.
Okay, feature. So this is where the GeoJSON actually is, and the way that GeoJSON works, it's like JSON key value pairs. Here, I can make this a little bigger too. It's a set of key value pairs, but there are keys and specific values, and so every feature has to have a geometry and properties. The properties where the like properties of like the actual attributes of the data are, and the geometry describes what the thing looks like. And you'll see here in the geometry, we have an array of coordinates. It's actually an array of coordinate pairs. And each coordinate pair represents one vertex on that polygon. So here we're talking about Linton, which is like up, where is it? Here, one of these. I don't know because they all say butts now, but and so it's one of these complex polygons up here, and so it has like 1,233 vertices. And a polygon is an array of arrays of coordinate pairs that where the first coordinate pair and the last coordinate pair are the same. So it goes around and it makes all the points, and then it closes itself into a polygon. So that's what the geometry looks like. Fortunately, you don't really have to think about that. Instead, we're going to look at the properties. So like I said before, we have coalit, which is the coalition of neighbors, which is the abbreviation is NWNW. And I think NW is, yeah, neighbors west, northwest.
Nice.
Super awesome. And then we have horsvert, which is apparently horizontal or vertical, but I don't really know what that means. It probably has to do with if they're making individual maps, they want to know, is this a horizontal, like when I make a paper map of this, should it be horizontal or should it be vertical?
Oh, that's cool.
That's my guess. Because probably this data, based on the fact that the data property names are in all caps, I'm guessing it was exported from a shapefile, which is a common GIS, geospatial data format, but it's not really suitable for the web. So I'm guessing they made a shapefile and then exported it as GeoJSON. That still preserves the properties that you would have in your shapefile. And if you're using a shapefile, you are making print maps. So my guess is that's what they use that for, which is also why you have a map label. This is interesting.
Yeah, right?
You have a name.
It's sentence cased.
Perfect. So why don't we do that just to start here? And instead of using name, here we can use, so here we can do let popup string equals, stop. My computer's freaking out. Equals feature dot properties dot, what is it called, map label?
Yeah.
Map label. And if we reload this page, it should give us the, yeah!
Nice, looks so pretty.
Amazing. This is MC unclaimed number 14.
Yeah, it's catchy.
Okay, so this is pretty interesting. So here, this neighborhood is called Sullivan's Gulch. It is a literal gulch. There's no terrain on this map, but it is like lowered. It's right next to the highway. As we can see here, this S is capitalized. Why might this S be capitalized? It is because whoever made that field, that, what was it? Map label? Layers.
Yeah, it's map label.
That map label, they wrote a little function that said, if there's not a letter before this letter, make it capitalized. And so the S, preceding the S, is an apostrophe, which is decidedly not a letter, and therefore the S is capitalized. Very interesting. That is one of the fun pitfalls of programming, is that the computer does exactly what you tell it to do. And if you tell it to make the letters capitalized that don't have a preceding letter, it'll do it. So I kind of like it, though. It gives it some flair, some hipness. But if we wanted to, we could make our own function that like appropriately title cases these. And in the situations where, like here, for example, this is an overlapping area between two neighborhood associations. So the Lloyd District Community Association / Sullivan's Gulch, it might be worthwhile to, if we wanted to, we don't quite have enough time, but if we wanted to write a little function that identified and like maybe added a property to the data where there's like an overlap, or like somehow styled those differently, we could do that. But also we would have to account for it in terms of title casing and making sure that the slash is accommodated and apostrophes are accommodated, and like a dot or a period at the end of an abbreviation is accommodated. Which is, you know, a lot of programming is just making sure things are capitalized correctly, to be frank. So what we can also do, like Sharon was saying, is, so we have, instead of just using this property, we can make a div that and give it an ID. So I'm going to do it in line here as a string. Cool pop-up. Oh, wait, I need to do it in single quotes. If you're using double quotes for the outside of your string and then you want to have quotes in it, you got to put single quotes, because then otherwise it'll think it's the end of the string. Or you can use a backslash.
Will that work though? Because
Yeah.
I think HTML is expecting the double quotes.
Oh, really?
So
I should switch them.
what if we tried template quotes? Did you use those before?
Ooh,
yeah, let's get fancy.
That's so cool. I never think to do that. Okay, so can you explain what you're doing?
Yeah, so template quotes, basically they let you write the string as it would just look normally inside, and then you can actually put in variables. So if like you want to use a variable inside, you just surround it with this $sign and the curly braces. And as you can see, it changes color. And so actually that will get evaluated for the value of the variable and then put inside that string. But then the resultant will actually be exactly how it looks. And so it means we can put those double quotes back in there, because HTML complains, right, I think, if you don't give it double quotes. Awesome.
So right now, cool pop-up, like we have our can we reload this? Awesome, amazing. So it looks exactly the same, which it should, because we haven't actually done anything with that div. But should we add the CSS in our style.css file?
Yeah, let's do that.
So style.css, the only two like map specific things that we added in here are the map ID container. It needs to have a height. And it needs to have a height that is that the browser can make. So for example, so that's why, for example, we have HTML and body here have a height of 100%, because then I can give a map ID also a percentage height, because then it'll know it's like 50% of what. Otherwise, you'd have to give the height a specific pixel value. But it needs to have a height, otherwise it won't work. So we gave our div ID cool pop-up. And now we can add any kind of amazing CSS we want. What do you think?
Why don't we make the color red? Is that it's FF and then all zeros, right? Or red, that also works. Yeah.
So reload. Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Look at that. So red.
Yeah.
Here's a fun thing too. Let's try this. We can go into here in the script, and similar to the way that we added the div, we can also add other text, right? So I can be like, neighbor, wait, I don't like the space. Neighborhood name. And now the neighborhood, we should have a little label that says neighborhood name in front of the neighborhood name.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Amazing.
And I guess we could.
So that's one way that you can customize it.
We could just put it in its own div, so it like goes like to the line below as well. Should we try that?
Ooh, I love that. So should we give that one an ID too?
If we want to start, yeah. If we want to add additional styles, we could. Yeah.
Okay. Double quotes, Lizzie. Double quotes. Yeah. Okay. So we do that. Yeah, I like it.
And then is it right?
That's amazing.
In template quotes, I think you can just like add like new lines and stuff, and it's all good, right? Can I just try that?
Yeah, sure.
Curious, because then we can like make it like a little bit more, I don't know, like styled or whatever, or like a indentation.
Yeah.
Is that what? Yeah. Cool. So template.
Did you add?
I just like put the new lines like in between some of the elements, and with template quotes that's fine. It lets you like
nice.
go multiple lines.
So cool.
Yeah.
Before we finish up here, Sheridan did a remix of this app and added a super cool thing. How do you think that you want to screen share? We can switch and then you can share it.
Maybe you can just share it. Do you have the link there?
I can just go to it. Yeah.
I can just talk through it.
What is the URL? Do you remember?
Let me go find it from my project page. I think it was.
Ooh, we can go to your project page too.
Oh yeah.
Sheridan. Is it Sheridan BK?
Just Sheridan.
Just Sheridan.
I got Sheridan. That was exciting. There's a lot of community remixes in there because the cool thing is about working at Glitch, our main website is a community website, is a Glitch app, sorry. So we get to just remix it. It's called Inky Mat, so you can find it like further down there if you do like an in-page search. Inky-Mat. Yeah, there you go. Cool. So what I did was it's really cool to be able to hover over the neighborhoods and see their names on the map. But what I wanted was to be able to just have a drop down and search for any neighborhood name and just go ahead and like it'll take you to where that neighborhood is. So yeah, so if you can pick any name, you can pick North Tabor or whatever you want, and then it'll zoom you into the map. And I had it
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so I tweaked it a little bit as well to make it so that when you zoom in, it actually highlights it so that you can see exactly what it is. And also did some stuff to actually pop up the label as well when you zoomed in. Actually, do you want to go to the code, Lizzie, and show them the rewind function? Because it can show you exactly what I changed based on your remix.
Let's go to view source. So yeah, there's three different pages for a Glitch app. There's the actual app itself, there's the code editing, and then there's the project page. And the project page is where you can get to the other ones. But if we go down here to tool, or no, not tools, the remix. There you go. Yeah. Or rewind, not remix.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Too many re's. All right, so it must have been about a week ago or something. Or yeah, 7 days. Right. So why don't you go back to that point? And don't actually rewind, but we can just go through and see what the delta was, or the change. So then if you want to go into index.html first.
Yeah.
I think for this one, actually, all I did was I used the Prettier extension just to like slightly change like how like stuff was laid out, which like looks like a lot of red and green changes. The one thing I did add is that select drop down, which is just below the map ID. So that's the HTML element. I could not for the life of me remember what a drop down was in HTML, so embarrassingly I had to Google that. But I suppose that happens.
Not embarrassing. I Google that stuff all the
time. So that's just a select, but it's actually empty right now. So then if you go into script.js, and so if you for the first time could actually just go down into your do stuff with data function. So I added it in there because as Lizzie said, like you don't have the data until it's been properly loaded in. So if you scroll down, yeah, so I have a console.log statement in there, which is just me like looking at the GeoJSON. So basically I created this extra sort of section in here which populates the select dropdown. So the first thing it does is it goes in and it grabs that element, the neighborhood select element, which was the ID that I gave it. And then I add a event listener on it. So this is the change event listener. So what that does is that basically every time you select a new item in that list, it calls this handle select function, which is defined a little bit higher up. I'll get onto that in a second. And then what it does to get all of those, so as I mentioned to start with, like there was nothing in that select. It needs to populate the select with a bunch of option tags, which are the things that show up when you click the select drop down. So basically what it does is it gets the GeoJSON object and it grabs all the layers from it. And so for each of the layers, it pulls out the name. And I guess now that we've discovered that map label property, it could maybe use that instead. And then it creates an option element, gives it a value corresponding to the leaflet ID, because I grab that later to then be able to identify what it needs to highlight on the map. I give it a text of the name, and then I just add it onto the selection element. That's what that append child thing is doing. And then if you just want to scroll back up for the handle select. So basically for the handle select, what it's doing is it's pulling out the layer that corresponds. So it's basically, if you can see that e.target.value, that e is like what gets passed into it from the option that was selected. And as I mentioned before, the value was the layer ID. And so it's basically pulling from the GeoJSON the layer that corresponds to that value. And then I'm basically faking a click on the layer. That fire event of a click fakes a click.
Oh, I've never seen that before. That's cool.
Yeah. And so what that then does is all of the click handlers that Lizzie already defined, it goes off and does that. And then I made some slight modifications to like what a zoom actually did. If you go into the zoom to feature function, so I actually have it highlight the feature. And then that means I have to do some changes around like how highlights are reset, because now it's not just hovering onto a layer that highlights it. Something else could have highlighted it as well. And so what I actually do now is I have another global variable, the highlighted layer. So if like a highlighted layer gets changed, all of these like other functions have access to it so that it can then be reset as needed.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah. Thanks. It was fun.
Thank you for your awesome remix.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm like so excited to see what other people have made. If you hold on, I'm gonna actually let you see my face here. I've become a completely different. I'm just kidding. I'm the same person.
Hi.
Oh, hi. We would love to see if you have made a super cool remix, or after this stream, if you're like, oh, now I have this amazing idea for a super cool remix, please let us know. You can send it to Glitch on Twitter or on the blog. There's a, on the blog post for this challenge, there is a form that you can fill out. So that would be super amazing. This is the kind of the last challenge that we're going to do in this first little round. The next thing that you'll see from us on the challenge front is next week I'm going to do a blog post and a potentially a live stream, unclear, we'll see, showing how to take the 3 challenge apps that we've made, so Chart.js, CSV parser, and Leaflet, and turn them into like one application that takes elements from each of the 3, because maps and charts go well together, and CSV handling is nice for data purposes. So look out for that next week. I think it's gonna be really fun. If you have ideas of other challenges and stuff that you want to play with or work on in the future, let us know that too. If you have suggestions on ways to make these streams better, anything really. If you like our hair today, we want to know that. So thank you so much for joining. Super great. And I'll catch you on the internet.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Thank you, Sheridan, for joining. Bye.
Bye.